Hey, thank you very much, and welcome back to the program. Chuck Malamut is here. Very pleased to make an announcement in just a moment, but let me just remind everyone this is Chuck's weekly regular program. I love Tuesdays when Kirk and then Chuck, I mean, it's such a powerful 2 hours of the program. Chuck is in his 26th year as our official financial advisor for the Early in the Morning program, and Chuck has obviously been at what he does longer than that. Chuck is the managing director. He leads his team, the Malamut Group, at Morgan Stanley's Northfield, New Jersey office for all of your financial planning needs. Turn to Chuck and his team at 609-383-2010. The following program is presented by Chuck Malamut, a financial advisor at Morgan Stanley. The information, views, and opinions expressed on this program are those of Chuck. They do not necessarily reflect those of Morgan Stanley or its affiliates. They are current as of the date of this broadcast, subject to change without notice. Neither the information provided nor any opinion expressed herein constitutes a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security. This presentation is for informational purposes only. Morgan Stanley Smith Barney, member SIPC. Chuck, before we begin your program, because you didn't put it on the agenda, because this is the way that you carry yourself as such a modest professional, and I've always respected that about you. I congratulated you yesterday when I returned for the broadcast week. I've congratulated you several times. 6 o'clock. Thank you, Kirk. Kirk Conover, Assemblyman Emeritus, has just left the building. I did a whole piece with Kirk during his program, and it is my pleasure with Chuck right here a couple feet from me in the studio of Early in the Morning on WPG to let everybody know that hasn't heard the great news that Chuck Malamut is again a Barron's Magazine top-ranked financial advisor, not only in all of America. I did some fast homework, and I looked at some years where the numbers of consultants were reported, and there aren't numbers for 2017, but I've been able to sort of guesstimate that there are about 300,000 financial advisors in America, and Chuck has made the coveted official Barron's top 1,200 financial advisors in all of America, and Chuck is top 40 in the state of New Jersey. And I think what's most impressive about this, Chuck, is you've earned this many times in your career, but when you leave one house and you go to another, you automatically get taken out and you have to make your way back on it. In other words, you have to be noticed all over again, and I congratulate you for accomplishing this tremendous achievement. I'm very proud of you, and I just think it just speaks volumes to the caliber of financial advisor that you are and that I've been saying for the past 26 years on this program. So congratulations.
Thank you, Harry. You know, I listened to you and Kirk this morning, and I think that Kirk was actually defending me more than you were, but that's okay. We'll get into that in a minute. But
yeah.
But I do appreciate it. But you know, it's not just me. It's the team. You know, Nancy, Mike, Kristen. I mean, if you can't tell, we work very, very hard on behalf of our clients. And while I know that we kind of banter back and forth about, well, Chuck, you're wrong about this, Chuck, you're wrong about that, we do get a lot right, as you know.
There's no question.
And to be able to,
I had to search long and high to find something that I can build a tabernacle around. Thank you.
and
Brexit.
And to be able to, you know, continue to deliver the quality service that we have for the last over 30 years. And when you have clients where you have multiple generations, you have the grandparents, the parents, and the children. I think that speaks a lot for itself. And when your client says to you, hey, we implicitly trust you, you said this is what you were going to deliver with respect to our retirement goals and dreams. We are, in fact, living through that right now, and everything is great. And you know, Harry, I mean, that's just, you know, I guess that's what we're here for. You know, we deliver, you know, the news. Maybe sometimes it's even the fake news. Maybe I kind of got trapped into fake news.
You mean last week?
Well, Brexit.
Because you think I'm going to turn out to be right.
Well,
you're hedging right now.
Nah. First of all, it's not, the old expression is not over till it's over.
I know.
But we'll get
to that. But it's looking good.
We'll get into that discussion.
And let me do this. We're going to go to the phone line, 609-407-1450 phone lines for Chuck Malamut. Welcome to the program. And I know who this is. This is John D'Alessandro, Vice President of Morgan Stanley, Chuck's boss. What do you think of your guy Barron's Top 1200, Top 40 in New Jersey.
Harry, good morning. Chuck, good morning. As the manager of the Northfield office, all I can say is we're all very proud of Chuck and his team to have earned this honor. And I think it's important to point out this is earned. This is not a given year to year. If you're on the list from the previous year, you have to earn it. And Harry, you mentioned it earlier, when you do move firms, you have to re-earn the right to be on this list. And Chuck and his team did that, and Morgan Stanley's had a presence in this market for a long, long time. And I know this Barron's list has been around for many, many years. This is the first time our office has had an advisor on the list. And it definitely means a lot to us. And I had to call in and congratulate Chuck over the airwaves. I know he didn't know I was going to do this, but I think it's important, and I wanted to communicate that over the airwaves.
Well, John, thank you very much. Obviously, a lot has been earned by the team. We rely on the leadership of our organization, which starts at the branch level with you, and then moves up to our complex and then division. Morgan Stanley certainly is just an exceptional place for us to be able to deliver to our clients the necessary planning tools, and obviously all the necessary inventory, whether it's managed money or individual stocks or bonds. And it's very, very refreshing when we're able to have all of that at basically arm's length, to be able to, again, get our clients, to be able to ascertain and meet their goals. So, it's the team, it's the management, and it's the firm. So thank you very much.
You're quite welcome, and thanks for all the hard work with you and your team.
And, John, before you go, I do want to say this. Of course, John knows that Chuck is here every Tuesday morning in the 8 o'clock hour, and John reached out to me and said he did not want to miss this opportunity to come on live during Chuck's program to be able to congratulate his guy for this STEAM accomplishment. And it speaks to the kind of person that you are, John, and really glad that you took the time to be with us this morning.
Thanks for having me, and I hope you guys have a great show.
See you, John.
Thanks,
we will.
John.
We will. Now, Chuck, over the last 2 days, including, and this would make almost 2 days, including today. I started with it yesterday, including today. Many mentions have all been kind. At some point, I want to get to last week's. I want to roll back the whole Wayback Machine and get to that part of the program where you went to that computer of yours and all that research and said, I think you said it was like a 66 and some odd % chance that there will be, it might even have been higher, that there will be no rate increase. I'm of the belief that has changed since we were last together.
All right, so look, let's take a look at what's happened last week. I mean, the market just had a phenomenal day the day after the president spoke, correct?
Yes.
And there were a few economic reports that came after that. And, analysts change their opinions sometimes, like they change their clothing. So in a matter of a relatively short period of time, and we're not talking politics, because this is not a political show.
Well, no, it happened.
It hasn't happened yet. I mean,
no.
Here's what happened.
The Fed chair basically said it's going to
happen. And it is now being thrown out there that the probability of a rate hike has basically flipped in a relatively short period of time. Now, I know I've known you a long time. You're my brother. I know exactly what you're thinking about. And when I heard Janet Yellen speak last week, I said, I know the first person is going to comment on it, and I don't think she was even finished. And I'm getting the text messages. So, but that's all good, because it's like I have a GPS on you, and I know exactly what you're going to do before you do it.
Well, you know me, and I'm predictable for people that actually truly know me, which not many people do. But it was such a delight to just, because I dug in, I doggedly said that information's wrong, Chuck. There is going to be a rate increase in March. I know it. And then I said, now we're in my lane. And I said, when I'm in my lane, I'm usually right. There's going to be a rate increase. I know it, because they want to raise it.
But here's what happened.
They want to stick it to this president.
So the market, and particularly, we look when it comes to interest rates and interest rate potential increases or decreases or whatever it may be. we're very, very dependent on what's happening within the bond market. And I know you remember last week we had a discussion, what's right, the chicken or the egg comes first. Is it the bond market? Is the stock market? Mm-hmm. But when Yellen made her speech last week, it was sort of a yawner. I mean, the markets really did not react or overreact to it. So it's really, how you think about it, it's the first time, and I know I'm going to get chastised for this, so I'm going to throw it out there. It's the first time in years that the Fed could be increasing rates when it obviously doesn't have to do so.
Right.
Which
really speaks to my statement from last week.
That they're under really no pressure either from markets,
right,
or the prior signals that they put out there.
But the first thing she said was that she was basically going to do it, which goes back to my statement last week. If you don't have to do it, if there's no reason to do it, there's no push to do it, there's no problem if you don't do it, and you do it anyhow, default to your brother Harry. I knew it.
When you and Kirk, I mean, you nailed it, and the fact that that we're quickly approaching $20 trillion, okay, in debt, our national debt. I mean, that's got to be paid for.
Yeah,
and it's going to become more expensive. So, the Fed, it's pretty obvious right now, Harry, that they're certainly more aggressive, with the trajectory they're on than the market had originally thought, several months ago.
Let me ask you one thing unrelated. When we come back, I want to turn the time over to you to do your usual market update because obviously we short-circuited it with your great award. I want to get the break in within 60 seconds so we don't mess up the next segment. But let me ask you this, because you're a very modest person. You never talk about yourself. You never brag. But when there's 300,000 people that do what you do, and you're in, I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, they don't rate 1 to 1,200. They rate each state. They will put all the winners from each state, and then they rank each state. So you don't really know if you're number 50 or if you're number 1,200. Is that a correct statement?
That's correct.
They don't do 1 through 1,200. But we know at the worst, you couldn't be worse than 1,200 and you can't be 1,200 because there are people behind you in the state of New Jersey. So you're way up there. When you think about the fact, if you use my rough math of, it could be 285, but I think it's 300,000 financial advisors in America, and you're in such a small company. At two levels, I want to ask you to comment, which you would never do it if I didn't make you. Number one, was it a better feeling to get it again after the mandatory exclusion from not being able to be considered when you changed firms? Was it better this time? And what does that feel like to get something that almost no one gets?
Well, Harry, I think as my wife Pam would attest to the fact that and you've known me a long time, I don't pretty even keel through all of life, whether it's something personally, professionally, whatever it may be. And the fact of the matter is I was up early Saturday morning to meet a few very good friends and colleagues as we work out together. I'm scrolling through my emails, and I see an email from Barron's. And I basically woke Pam up out of a deep sleep. So you actually had to look in to see if you got it, right? Well, what happened was a notice that you did get it. It was an email from Barron's, and when you get the email, you kind of understand. You're on it. So. Yeah, it was about 6 a.m. on Saturday, so I was pretty excited, and I think this time was very, very special because when we left, it seemed rather regular. I think it was 5 years in a row, and I did not know at the time that you would have to basically be sitting in a penalty box for anywhere a minimum of a year or so to be able to earn it back. Is again, it's not me, it's the team. I mean, we all work hard, and I happen to be the person that is the team leader or the captain. So, they can't give it to the team; they give it to an individual. So, it's special. There's no doubt about it. I'll leave it at that.
Congratulations. We're going to be right back. This portion of our program also brought to us by Congress Hall, America's oldest seaside resort. Let me tell you about the spring break getaway. I'm thinking about a couple right now. In fact, he just texted me that will thoroughly enjoy this. If you either dial toll-free 888-944-1816 or go right to the website, congresshall.com, literally you can book. I've done it both ways. You can book right from the website or feel free to speak to a reservation agent. But the Spring Break Getaway, this is a package that includes a welcome basket and a $30 dining credit per day, and there are still some incredible rates in the spring season. Obviously, weekend gets very, very challenging, but check it out. It's awesome. And under Business is Blooming, you can meet at Congress Hall this spring with hotel rates as low as $99 per night. Check it out. And they have great, whether it's the Founders Room or other meeting facilities, the Harrison Room, depending on the size of your group, there is a great opportunity to stay at Congress Hall, have a off-site with the staff, and train the trainer, whatever you might be doing, with some really great rates. Congress Hall, 200 Congress Place on Beach Avenue, America's oldest seaside resort, now open in its third century. Tell them. That Hurley in the Morning sent you. Back with Chuck Malamut, our official financial advisor, in 60 seconds. Hey, thanks very much. Also, I want to send a shout-out to one of Chuck's clients who wrote into the program. He is Dan Gudaskis, a.k.a. Dan the Spackle Man. Besides being a great human being, just a great person. I wish he would run for something someday. What a great official. I shouldn't wish that on him, right, Chuck?
No, thank you, Dan. No, you don't want to wish that on him.
But he would be fantastic. He's even-tempered. He's fair. He's everything we don't have right now in government. He's honest. I mean, think about it. But Dan the Spackle Man, Dan Gudaskis, sent in his best regards to send a shout-out to you, Chuck, from one of your clients.
Well, thank you, Dan. But, he should run. He should be on the EHT school board. There you go.
Oh, boy. I would wish that on almost anybody these days.
I had an opportunity to listen to that yesterday, Harry. And, whoa, for you cut the news out, correct?
Couple of minutes of the
news.
There
you go. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, certainly exciting. I never ever want to be on the wrong side of that interview.
Thank you.
But
we're fair. We're firm, but we're fair.
Yes.
You said that hesitantly. You should have saw Chuck's face. Yes.
Well, when
Fonzie saying wrong.
But if you know where if you need to know where you need to know where you're going. I guess.
I'm playing three-dimensional chess. So my first move, maybe it's a Sicilian move. I'm playing three-dimensional chess. I'm 3 moves ahead of where I'm going. And I laid a couple of traps during that interview, and he fell into every one of them. Chuck, your market update. Time is yours.
All right, so Harry, it's been pretty remarkable. Again, last week the S&P was up 0.7%, so just slightly less than 1%. Year to date, going into yesterday, S&P up just and the Dow Jones up just shy of 7. The Nasdaq, the clear winner, up over 9%. So what is happening? The data that we're continuing to see, for the most part, continues to be better than everyone has expected. I think one of the shortcomings, though, Harry, is even we're through pretty much the fourth quarter with respect to earnings. We still have a tendency, and we're seeing that companies miss the top line more than we would like, but still are able to meet, get to the bottom line. So
I mean, the top line has been about a decade phenomenon, hasn't it?
It's been a long time. But here's what's happening now. As you noticed, consumer confidence right now is at the highest level we've seen
since the 1980s.
Well, actually, it's been about 2001.
Okay, that's right. I was thinking of another indice. 2001. That is absolutely correct.
And the index that is typically used, which is called the ISM Non-Manufacturing Index, which looks at business activity and employment trends, strongest reading in since late 2015. So,
good.
Remember, as we got through 15, the markets were pretty giddy with respect to where we were going. In 16, it didn't quite work out as we anticipated until we got to the end of the year. So, as we end up with this continuing improving data points, what is happening? Your friends at the Fed. I have to laugh here. As I'm ready,
they're doing
as
exactly.
As I'm ready to deliver. What I'm going to say here in a second. Well,
I knew what they were going to do.
I don't want to say you're on the inside, but
no,
look.
I'm just teasing, but I knew what they were going to do.
So last week the message was that there's probably going to be an increase as we get into the March meeting, which is next week. I think what all of us need to be
time out 1 second. If we have a 25 basis points increase, a 1/4 of a point increase, I'm not even going to rule out that it could be a half a point, but I don't think it will be. Would that automatically mean if you apply for a car loan or a mortgage, is that rate instantly going to be passed on lickety split, or how does that typically work?
Look, historically, rates increase very, very quickly. Or let me back up. When the Fed increases interest rates, and there are certain indexes, prime, LIBOR, they move very, very quickly. And it depends upon what you're applying for. A car loan, what is it tied to? What is the index? What is the spread? Now, you're not going to see on the long end of the curve, like a 15-year fixed, a 30-year fixed. I mean, those rates have moved up, but they're not going to move up in lockstep like you're going to see on the short end of the curve. But
say I'm not asking you to be Nostradamus, but say you have preferred credit 720 and above score type deal, and today you could get a car loan at about 2%, probably 2.5%, under 3 for sure. If these rates go up 1/4 of a point or whatever they go up next week, by Friday, do they jack the rate up just like that? Is that typically how fast it goes?
They move quickly. Yeah, I mean, you'll get a notice from your bank. You'll get a notice, from wherever your home equity line is. We're increasing rates. Rates are effective as of a certain date, and typically what happens is, if the Fed comes in on next week and it does in fact increase, you're going to get a 25 basis points, assuming it's a 1/4 point increase. Very, very quickly in your bills now. But here's what's happening, Harry. I think that it's more than what's happening potentially in March. The Fed, I think, has pretty much positioned themselves on a schedule. When you think about this, we talked about this at the beginning of the year, multiple rate hikes in 2017. Mm-hmm. So don't be at all surprised if they end up with an additional 2 to 3 as we get through 17.
And as you know, I'm not, and I've expected it.
So the chances of it happening, Harry, are now 86%. 86.
Oh, my, in a week.
86 happens to be a pretty...
What was it a week ago?
It was actually in the 40s. 86 happens to be a very good number for me. It happens to be a favorite number of mine. If we can save that for another time as to why I like that number.
86 is also a famous number in Atlantic City police lingo.
So, 86, I know. So there's a chance, that's the likelihood of it happening. I guess what I'm going to have to do that day at about 2:00 is hide under the desk, or maybe go for a long, extended, healthy car ride.
I'll just send you one of my Bitmojis. It'll be me celebrating.
I'll get it. They announce at 2. I'll probably see it at 2.01.
I might actually send it prior to
Harry,
the announcement.
That's
confidence.
That's going out on a limb for sure.
Let's get our halftime break in. He's got a lot more to do. If it's still in his market update, he'll continue with that. It is on the agenda. It almost looks like a mirage. U.S. politics is on the agenda, so we will, from a financial standpoint, speak about that. European politics, corporate earnings, economic growth, and we did talk about the Fed, but who knows, maybe we'll close with a comment on that as well. Chuck Malamut continues, our official financial advisor for the Hurley in the Morning program. For all of your financial planning needs, turn to Chuck and his group, the Malamut Group, that he leads as managing director at Morgan Stanley's Northfield, New Jersey office, 609-383-2010. As John D'Alessandro, the vice president from Morgan Stanley and the branch manager for the group, mentioned, Chuck is the first ever in their history to achieve the Barron's top-ranked financial advisor. It's a coveted power list. It's officially known as Barron's Top 1200. That's nationwide. Chuck is in the top 40 in the state of New Jersey, and we congratulate our very own Chuck Malamut for earning his way multiple years onto the Barron's power list, Barron's 2017, just out a few days ago. Hey, thanks very much. Welcome back. 35 minutes past the hour. Chuck Malamut is here, our official financial advisor. For all of your financial planning needs, turn to Chuck and his group, the Malamut Group, at Morgan Stanley's Northfield, New Jersey office, 609-383-2010 for all of your financial planning needs. Are we in market update still? We're shifting.
Well, Harry, we'll finish up with the Fed here for a minute. Just think about this for a second, that on Friday, the U.S. jobs reports comes for the month. And if I think that could be the crescendo, so to speak, depending upon what those numbers look like. So maybe that 86% will in fact decrease, but we'll find out.
Were you surprised at all that the markets didn't even, care a whim, a blink, nothing when fourth quarter GDP came in at 1.9%?
Well, Harry, because you're looking through the rearview mirror, and I think that if you take a look at every day, just everything that's happening in Washington, and for all of us, it gets very, very tiring, and the fact of the matter is, you have the president and you have the GOP Congress at this point in time, they're not necessarily in lockstep, which could very well increase investors' anxiety, because you think about how optimistic we have been, or how we are, I should say, with respect to the pro-growth policies as far as the economy are concerned that Trump wants to put in place. So investors could very well begin to lose some patience if specific issues with respect to tax policies, and the good news is the other healthcare reform now, so obviously that was just announced yesterday, and they're going to put that in play, I believe, tomorrow.
And I wanted to bring that up, and I think under U.S. politics, this is part of what you meant when you wrote that as a topic for today, I think at least. And I'm going to tell you, I see pitfalls. The House version is not the same as the Senate version. They didn't let certain people see the thing that wanted to see it. Rand Paul's upset with it. He doesn't like it. I think they're going to have a little bit of trouble reconciling, because you know how the government works. It's worse than making hot dogs. If you have a version that's different in the House and a version that's different in the Senate, they have a conference to be able to, in conferees, that try to then create one bill out of the two, and then they each have to go back and vote. Each branch, each house of the Congress has to then vote again, and then hopefully it's something that the president will then sign. I see this health care as potentially a very serious impediment.
Harry, I don't disagree with you on that. I mean, I think the next 72 to 96 hours are going to be very, very critical as to, the future of obviously healthcare and some of the additional items that, our pro-growth president is looking to put into place, in the future. So, I think that no one, well, maybe you expected this to be happening, but I think it's unfortunately it's terribly unfair at this point in time, and I'm kind of of the opinion, Harry, and again, I'm not talking politics like anything else. You hire somebody for a job, you lay out the groundwork and the levels of responsibilities and what they need to do and what they cannot do, and then you give them the opportunity to succeed or to fail. And unfortunately, what we're seeing now is you're not even for the most part, you're not even given the opportunity to prove, right or wrong. So I think that, we'll overcome it. And, it's certainly what is interesting about the stock market, Harry, and the bond market is the fact that the market is pretty much ignoring a lot of what I always refer to as making sausage. That was canned many, many years ago, or coined many, many years ago down in Washington. And, so if we can work through, what is happening here, and the other thing we need to consider here, Harry, there's a fair amount of risks overseas as we look at Europe. I mean, but they have faded somewhat, as the elections, in various countries, for various political spots are being put into play. That seems to be, in a better mode now than we were certainly months ago. One of the things that we chatted about just a few minutes ago were earnings. Corporate earnings for the most part have improved over the last several quarters. But forward-looking estimates, and that's expectations, that's something we always talk about. I think, they might have been a little too high. Consensus expectations are for double-digit advances, Harry, in earnings growth in 2017. Don't be at all surprised if that may not be achieved, Harry. If profit margins, remain under pressure as we get into the latter part of this particular year. As far as our economy is concerned, we've seen, it seems like almost every report we see now, we've had this uninterrupted, positive growth surprises in our economy over the last several months. We don't expect growth to necessarily slow, but don't be at all surprised if you end up with some bumps in the road, so to speak, as we get into the upcoming several months. And one of the favorite topics is the Fed, and are we going to make a move? Is it 25 basis points? How often is it going to happen? There's obviously, a lot of uncertainty as to who Donald Trump is going to nominate to the Federal Reserve Board of Governors. So, we've seen a lot of discussion about that. Harry, what are you doing? Actually, I mean, I see you.
I made a plaque. I engraved a plaque while you were talking.
You got behind your monitor, and I just saw your head down. And
why don't you read the plaque? I just engraved it while you were speaking. Could you read it? And it's got a metal plate with all kinds of fancy epaulets and all these different things all over it, and push buttons.
It's not quite kind of like your crown, but it does says congratulations, Chuck Malamut. You got my name spelled right. That's good.
Yeah.
2017 Barron's Top 1,200 Financial Advisors, Top 40 New Jersey. Thanks, Harry. We'll leave that up there for at least the next year.
No, it's going to stay. It's a plaque. I might even improve that when I have a little bit of time. But I think that looks nice.
Harry.
It's just like a plaque.
So I guess what I'm trying to say, and being somewhat long-winded, is that you have global economic growth. It's been pretty obvious as to what we're seeing here, and that does in fact favor risk assets, typically equities. But the problem, what we hear all the time, well, the market's at an all-time high. The market's near an all-time high. How much can the market go from here? The global economy, Harry, as we look at it today, should continue to improve. China, which we haven't talked about in a long time, they're obviously very, very important with respect to global growth. Especially for commodity producing nations. Now there's all kinds of discussion that their growth could decrease somewhat, but obviously that country operates a lot different than our country. But some of the policies that are designed right now sort of shifts their economy to be more domestically focused. And think about how many people live in China. It's just remarkable. So, the other thing to consider, as you get into an interest rate environment where rates move higher, I think we've moved from a deflationary environment to a reflationary phase. So it's going to become a little more expensive, to buy goods and services. So I think your listeners need to be prepared for that. I mean, you mentioned it as the first thing we chat about is what happens with an auto loan, for instance. So that's something we need to be prepared about. So we think equity markets might be a little tired here at these levels, Harry, and there's nothing wrong with a small pullback. It's like anything else, like 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Amazing how you keep saying that, and then we saw the fastest path for 1,000 points.
Yeah, we did.
In history of the Dow.
And so you look at, and again, yesterday does not make a day. But here's what's interesting about yesterday. We got off to just not a great start. We're down. I think the Dow was down maybe close to 100 or at 100 at the opening, and clawed its way back. It was down still for the day, but you're not seeing that fanatical sell process that goes on, when markets, get overheated. So I hear a lot of strategists talk about, there's a lot of room to go, and Morgan Stanley, in fact, says that as well. So, I think it's a matter of being patient, and again, it goes back to understanding what you own and why you own it. And there was an IPO last week. We won't mention the name. Everybody knows who it was, and there was just a lot of appetite for it. And the stock got pushed higher very, very quickly. And now today is the third, fourth day the stock is trading. And now, from what I saw earlier this morning, it IPO'd at 17. The first trade was at 24. It went to the high 20s. It's now back below the 24. So, you got to be very, very careful. You got to understand why you own it at any particular time.
We're going to take a brief time out. We're going to be right back. Ken Mosca is going to join us next. Chuck, congratulations again.
Thank you, Harry. We'll see you next week.
In case you didn't hear, ladies and gentlemen, Chuck Malamut selected for 2017 Barron's Top 1,200 Financial Advisors, Top 40 in the state of New Jersey. This is something that basically 300,000 financial advisors wish they could achieve, and only 1,200 actually do it. And Chuck has done it many. I did 6 there, at least, many times. And now at 2 different firms, which is very rarefied. We're going to be right back. Don't go away. This portion of our program is also brought to us by Dr. Alan Chenman, the Smile Center of Linwood, the official dentist to the Early in the Morning program. If you're doing implants, you have the combination of Dr. Salama, who does the implant. Then Dr. Chenman takes it once the implant is in. He will then do the impressions, and he'll actually fit the ultimate tooth. They do a great job as a team. They do it all, from general, cosmetic, to implant dentistry. Their expertise ranges from porcelain veneers. I mentioned dental implants, crowns, bridges, inlays, onlays. Dr. Chenman can correct the wide variety of the permanent cosmetic dental problems. Check out the Smile Gallery, because more than listening to me tell you that this is the case, go look at unretouched photos of actual before and after cases, and it truly is amazing at SmileCenterNJ.com. But the important thing, the first step towards a beautiful, healthy smile, is to make your appointment. Schedule it through Shannon, Dr. Chenman Scheduling Appointment Coordinator. All you have to do is dial 609-601-2199, and then do as I do, not as I say. Go to their office at 1999 New Road, Suite D in Linwood. The Smile Center of Linwood, Dr. Alan Chenman, perfecting the art of beautiful smiles.